Welcome, everyone. My name is Brent Smith, Professor of Marketing and Chairperson of the Department of Marketing Communication at Emerson College's School of Communication. It's a Tuesday, the 9th day of February. It's a time where we acknowledge many things, in particular, Black History Month in the United States of America. It's also a time where we begin 2021 following a very challenging 2020, a year where we learned more than ever, perhaps, that we are more connected than we perhaps realized. It's also a time, thus, where we acknowledge the importance to reflect upon who we are and who we can be that in how we live, or how we work, or how we contribute to this thing we call society. Thus, I'm so pleased to be introducing the first of 4 talks that we present on the theme, Rethinking Consumer Engagement, Leading with Empathy, Equity, and Integrity. Before I continue, I'd like to take a moment to thank members of my team who brought this series to fruition. First, thank you to Sharon Topper, who came to me in September of 2020 with this idea of a series of talks around the new opportunities that would emerge from the reckoning this country is facing in so many areas. Second, I'd like to thank Luann Reeve, Assistant Dean of the School of the Arts and Director of Business Studies and Entrepreneurial Studies. Third, I'd like to thank Cynthia Tanunu, Administrative Associate of the Department of Marketing Communication. And I'd also like to give a special thanks to the students and faculty and senior administrators who have so graciously supported this endeavor. As we look forward to what will become our story of 2021, may we keep in mind the many hidden figures across industry in our communities who graciously gave of themselves to be change makers, probably understanding we would never know exactly who they were or appreciate the fullness of what they gave to the future world that we would live in. May we today make it our commitment to hear and see one another in ways that we may have never seen and heard one another. And more importantly, may we show evidence to each other that we truly are seeing and hearing each other. With no further delay, I now am pleased to introduce Michelle Whalen, Provost of Emerson College, who will introduce this session and our featured guest. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brent. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, Emersonians. I think the public arena today has been infected by the political sphere, and it's rife with distrust, with fear, with miscommunication. We all need to move past this to a better place, and at Emerson, we're committed to creating tomorrow's leaders who understand that equity, integrity, and compassion lead to a stronger society. I was so pleased to hear about this speaker series from the Department of Marketing Communication, which is addressing different aspects of this crucial repair. I'm particularly excited to have the talented Tim Gunn, actor, writer, producer, entrepreneur, and educator, to launch this series on leading with empathy, equity, and integrity. A compassionate and clear communicator, Tim is a creative force who epitomizes these values in everything he's done. I'm a longtime viewer of Project Runway and Making the Cut, and I have to tell you, it's my great pleasure to welcome Tim Gunn to Emerson. While I love fashion, my favorite parts of each episode are the frank table talks that he has with the designers. These highlight Tim's talents as an educator by demonstrating his curiosity, his mentorship, his care and concern, and his honesty. These traits are evident in everything that Tim does, whether on TV, as the voice behind various characters, or as a representative for It Gets Better. Tim is first and foremost a mentor and an educator. We are so grateful that he's joining us today with our experienced and dedicated faculty member in marketing communication, Professor Sharon Tolpin Topper, Cornell alumna and expert in international business development and communication. So I'm going to turn it over to Sharon and Tim.
Thank you, Michelle. Hi, Tim. Have to unmute. Tim,
All right, now I'm unmuted.
Yay! All right, the
The
beginning
Zoom
of every
technology.
Zoom call.
I loved
Yes.
hearing Aretha Franklin singing "Who's Zooming Who." We don't know these days. But I want to thank Brent for his inspiring words, and I want to thank Michaela for her hugely generous introduction. Thank you, Michaela.
Wonderful. Tim, I'm so thrilled to have you here today. When we started talking about this series, I knew that there was no one else I wanted to start it with, because you really do embody the very words that we're talking about today. And so full disclosure, Tim is a very good friend of my sister's. Hi, Alana. Thank you.
Hi, Alana.
And I'm so glad we're finally here and having this conversation.
Well, Sharon, I'm deeply honored to have the conversation with you. We've become great pals over the last several months.
Seriously. I said we should probably make this a few hours, but maybe that's for the next one. So I just want to get some housekeeping out of the way. We'll be talking for about a half an hour. We really don't know where the conversation will go because it seems to go in many different places. At any time, if you have a question, please type it into the Q&A tab. It is the furthermost tab to your right. We will get to as many questions as we can during the session. I will call your name and we'll have the magic behind the scenes called Albert Lee turn your audio on so you're able to ask the questions. And I ask that you keep it brief, and Tim asks that you ask anything you want, no holds barred. So there we go. So let's start with our first conversation, Tim. This one really is for our students. Did you ever imagine that your professional journey would take you to where it did when you were at Corcoran School of Arts and Design?
Oh, Sharon, I mean, the message I want to send to the entire Emerson community is life's path is very serendipitous. You just don't know where it's going to take you. And no, I would never have dreamed of any of it. I never dreamed I'd become a career educator. To be perfectly blunt, I hated school. I loved learning. I loved absorbing knowledge and exploring, but I hated the social aspects. So for me to become a teacher was the furthest thing from anything that I imagined.
Yeah, you've talked a lot about that. You've been completely open, which is pretty unbelievable to me, about the struggles you had in school and how that shaped you as a person. Yeah, and probably I would imagine also shaped the projects that you've gotten involved with. Is there a common theme across them? Something that you choose when you're choosing your projects?
Well, it has to be something that I feel passionate about and that I believe in, and that in no way compromises my own values. Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about Making the Cut. I was binging it, obviously, in preparing for, our conversations. And in many ways, Making the Cut has realized the promise of digital, right? Yes. I'm watching it on demand on Amazon Prime. At the end of the episode, I can click on my Fire Stick remote to order it instantly and have it delivered to my door the very next day.
Yes.
How did you come up with this idea? How did you involve Amazon? I mean, it's their first reality show as well. Can you tell us about that?
Well, this is also life's serendipitous path. Heidi and I made the very bold decision to leave Project Runway. We had 16 wonderful seasons. We loved the show. And quite frankly, there were a lot of things that we wanted to do with the show that we just weren't permitted to do. And it has to do with, or had to do with, the network really not wanting change, saying if it's not broken, why are we fixing it? So we started a conversation, quite frankly, with Netflix, and it was going very, very well. And during these conversations, Amazon reached out to our agents who are across the hall from each other at CAA. When I say ours, Heidi's and mine. And they said, we understand, I love this term, we understand that Heidi and Tim are on the market. And we I'd like to have a conversation. So we met with Amazon. Heidi and I went out into the parking lot in Los Angeles and just said, well, there's no contest here. I mean, this is was a phenomenal conversation. And I will say very matter-of-factly, the fashion aspect, actually making the clothes, was not part of the initial conversation. It evolved as our relationship evolved, because we all realized what an incredible opportunity it is. And I'll also add that Heidi and I were both very nervous about whether these things would sell. Things sold out within 36 hours, completely sold out. So that was phenomenal as well.
It's really unbelievable, both to the consumer, but also to the designer.
Yes.
You know, it's so entrepreneurial and innovative that you came up with this new paradigm in selling clothing, selling fashion.
And I will also say, Amazon is so incredibly generous. They gave 100% of the proceeds from those sales to the designer.
And you had a lot to do with that.
Well, I encouraged it. I mean, it's their work, it's their intellectual property. There would be nothing on the Amazon fashion page for making the cut were it not for the designer's work. So they deserve the credit and the compensation.
Yeah. Something else about making the cut, as you mentioned, you know, it's not so much about the fashion, the actual collection, although it is. It's more about the brand and the business plan, something else that we are very focused on in marketing communication and at Emerson. Can you tell us about that? Like how that, you know, how important is the brand when you're talking about in creative businesses?
Well, you're nothing as a designer or as an entrepreneur or as any creative person, you're nothing without a brand. And you need to be able to very succinctly express what that brand is, define it, and never stray from it. I mean, it can certainly evolve, but if you're a fashion designer, for example, and you're designing beautiful clothes, my hat's off to you, bravo. But what are you going to do with these designs? Where are they going to go? And how do you see yourself in the greater rubric of the world? I would ask my students when I was chairing the fashion program at Parsons, all right, who's the customer? What's the price point? Where would these clothes sell? Who would also be next to you on the racks? Because the clearer that becomes for them, the better their design work will be. It's not, I think that there's nothing less creative than a blank slate. I think the more problems that we have to solve, the more creative we need to be. So for making the cut, it's all about the branding. And also there's $1 million at stake and a mentorship with Amazon Fashion. And having been in Seattle at the Amazon Fashion headquarters, it is the most phenomenally inspiring place. I'm still reeling from the experience. It was staggering.
Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, they're doing so much in-house, so much private label design work that is spectacular because they have access to the latest technology and textile development. They're working on, I don't want to give too much away because they'll get mad at me, but they're working on a virtual dressing room where we can be at home on our computers and we put in certain measurements and they'll tell us what the fit is. And there's some iterations of this that are already out there, but the level of sophistication that they're developing is really mind-blowing.
Yeah, we talk about, you know, I mean, this is how this series actually came about, how opportunity comes about with new circumstances. And what you're talking about now couldn't be more of an example of that, right? Everyone is home. People aren't going to the stores. And while this probably would have happened eventually, it just speeds that process up because there's such a need right now.
Yes, it's a prod. Yeah, it's
yeah.
poking at us saying, move.
That's right. You mentioned to me that you were not paid for the first 2 seasons of Project Runway. And And we also have students that get involved in projects or internships where they're not paid. I'm curious what your advice is to them about how they value their services and how they ask to be compensated. And I want to also know, how did you, after 2 years, bring up the subject of compensation?
Well, I should begin by saying that I was initially an unpaid consultant to Project Runway. I was never intended to be on camera. So that's how my role began. So as we segued to, well, you're going to go into the workroom and you're going to talk to the designers, I never even thought about compensation. I thought, well, I'm unpaid consultant and I'll be an unpaid question asker. Or I guess I should say questioner. And I'll also add that that first season of Project Runway, and I never dreamed there'd be a second season, but that first season, I never dreamed that I would be in the cut of the show. I was very aware of the camera placement. I thought, as long as I have the designers responding to me, no one needs to see me, no one needs to hear my voice. And I just made the assumption that it's reality television. There's no money, there's no budget. It's why we were, frankly, why we were taping at Parsons. We had no intention of taping at Parsons. We were going to outfit a big loft space in the apartment building where the designers were living, but we didn't have any money. So I knew that Parsons was empty during the month of August when we were taping. And I just said, well, come over and look at it. It might be the right formula for what we need to do. So compensation was never in my vocabulary, frankly. And I was at a GLAAD Media Awards gala in Los Angeles after the first 2 seasons. And I met a gentleman who approached me and he asked, who represents you? And I said, represents me for what? He said, well, your contracts, your compensation. Contracts? I don't have contracts. Well, your compensation. I don't get paid anything. He said, oh, we need to talk. And he's been my agent now for the last 15 years. And really woke me up about what is right in the world and what is abusive. But had I to do it all over again, would I have done those first 2 seasons for nothing? Yes, most definitely, because look what it led to. And you don't know. I really will say this. On the one hand, I don't believe in I would say the metaphorical raping and pillaging of talent. I'm fundamentally opposed to it. On the other hand, if you see an opportunity that seems as though it's percolating something positive for you, seize it and see where it takes you and do everything at 1,000%, whether you're paid or you're not paid. People will take notice. They'll take note and they'll say, all right, this is someone who really gives everything and believes in what he or she is doing.
Yeah, you said something when in one of our conversations about curiosity, about trying, just embracing something fully and be curious about it. You'll learn something from it.
Absolutely. I believe that curiosity is one of the best characteristics we can possess. And I'm in some ways the poster child for that, because curiosity leads you to a portal, and that portal can take you to places you could never have imagined. I mean, as an example that's not fashion related, well, in a way it is. I became an avid fencer 5 years ago at age 62. Fencing was never in my vocabulary. I didn't know what it was, and now, en garde. I mean, I'm just so enthralled with it all. And it's not only a workout for the body, it's a workout for the mind. So for the fencing community, try fencing.
Yeah, and the first pair of sweatpants, right, that you ever owned.
And one thing, and Tim Morehouse got me into my first pair of sweatpants.
There you go. And Heidi somehow managed to beat you, though. I don't know, is that staged? Was that real?
No, she's a fabulous dancer, and dancers make great fencers. They really do. No, that was not staged at all. She's phenomenal.
Yeah, no, and that leads me to the next question. As we're talking about integrity and equity, empathy, there's also a kindness to you. You deliver sometimes very difficult feedback that that needs to be heard, but you do it in a very, very kind way, which, makes all the difference. But there, not everybody is so kind in fashion. And I think you can feel that even when you're watching the show, that not everybody shares that. So how do you navigate that? How do you kind of bring them to a place of kindness?
Well, for me, it was a whole process of trial and error that began teaching when I was teaching. It began in the classroom, because I learned very quickly that if you're too blunt an instrument without somehow putting a velvet glove on it, that your students discredit you. They just shut down and they don't listen any longer. And they just label you as, well, that mean person. And that is never my intention. My intention is to help, or else I would just walk away. I would just say, well, who cares? Which I have occasionally done on Project Runway.
I have seen that. I think with Martha, was it with?
Oh, that was on Making the Cut, yes.
Making the Cut, yeah.
That SWAT mill, and I think it's season 14 of Project Runway. I just said, and another refrain of mine, aside from making it work, is I can't want you to succeed more than you do. So why do I feel like I'm investing more in this than you are? But I will repeat, I found that if you're not thinking empathetically about how the individual is going to receive the information you're about to deliver, then you're putting yourself at risk in terms of their perception of you and your own credibility and your own integrity. So
I was going to say, I mean, that is the case in leadership and business as well, right? Yes. In any format, that it's not about autocracy. It's about having voices heard and being seen, and having an equitable environment where everyone can feel empowered to do their job.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When I was Chief Creative Officer at Liz Claiborne, another position I never dreamed I'd ever have, I had the most fantastic boss. The CEO was a wonderful gentleman by the name of Bill McComb, and he would constantly talk about how passionately he believed in vulnerable leadership. Leaders who were willing to let their guard down and show their weaknesses, and then invite help to resolve those weaknesses. An incredible person, a huge inspiration.
I love that. Talking about season 2, you were convinced. You've been very careful throughout the pandemic, yet your people convinced you somehow to film it during the pandemic. What was that like?
Well, we were very lucky. And we didn't know how lucky we were until later. We were lucky in the timing of it. It was from September through the middle of October, before the whole second wave hit, and television and film productions were shut down all over the world. But we stayed in one place. We stayed in Malibu, California, on a ranch. We were tested every single solitary day, and we were diligent about not having any outsiders and having no one leave. There was no fabric store shopping. We brought the fabric store to the ranch, basically. And having come from season 1, where we went around the world, literally, it was hard for Heidi and for me to wrap our brains around the idea that we were staying put this entire season, but it worked. And I just have to say, I'm so grateful I'm not an editor of the show, because I don't know how I would do it. It would each episode would probably be 18 hours long.
When is it? Do you have a date for it?
We don't.
No date yet.
Not yet.
Okay, I was going to say you heard it here, but we didn't. So
it's about to be announced.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So I would like to end this part of the conversation with what I like to call the Proust questionnaire, Emerson version. For those who don't know about the Proust questionnaire, it is kind of like a salon game that after the person answers these questions, you know who they really are.
So
it's not that bad. It's a short version of it. So And then we're going to go right into the Q&A.
Wonderful.
So this, I believe, is a question just for you. What is your least favorite color?
Aubergine.
Wow. Is that for clothing or just in general?
In general.
Interesting.
It's like you're facing a bruise.
That's great. What would you say is your has been your biggest failure? And the follow to that is your biggest victory. So you can do those together if you like.
Oh my. How long do we have for the failure part?
Well, we know we learn from our mistakes,
We
right?
do.
So
I think that failures happen when assumptions are made that shouldn't be made, and I really believe in never assuming. You just don't know, and it's assumptions that have led me down a path that I've regretted. And in terms of victories, be yourself. That's for me victorious. You don't have to worry about who you are. You don't have to worry about who you said you were. You're just you, and it will guide you.
absolutely. Favorite movie of all time?
Oh, The Wizard of Oz. I've seen it 200 times. It's a
Wow.
fantasy, it's horror, it's enthralling, it's captivating, it's transporting. I love the movie. And it
Wonderful.
was made in 1939.
Wow, that's
Staggering.
crazy. Yeah. And what is a quality that you most admire in people?
Empathy.
We didn't pay Tim for that, by the way. That was not a
Oh.
plug. That was real. And the final question is, what gives you hope for the future?
Our young people.
Yeah,
I believe that the future is very bright thanks to them. It looks bright to me.
wonderful. Thank you, Tim. And now with a reference to The Wizard of Oz, we have our own wizard behind the curtain. So when I will call the name of the person asking the question, that person will ask for you to unmute, and you will be able to ask your question to Tim directly. So the first question is from Angela Grant.
Hi, Angela.
Hi, Tim.
Hi.
I've been a fan for a million years.
Thank you.
So I wanted to know what you thought was the biggest challenge you see facing young designers today.
Oh, it's the fact that the field is so crowded. How do you differentiate yourself from everyone else? That's the hard thing to do. And that goes right back to our earlier conversation about branding, about how you really need to know who you are as a designer. You need to know who your audience is, who your customer is. You need to think about how do you market this? It's really about, as Heidi would say, on making the cut, it's about cutting through the noise. How do you do that? That's the biggest challenge.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next question is from Mary Gallagher.
Hi, Mary.
Hi, well, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us here today. I also have been a tremendous fan of the Project Runway show. I love the fashion and the creativity, but I have to say I greatly admire you as an educator.
Well, thank you very much.
So my question for you is, when you work with designers, you have this beautiful way of respecting their ideas and their visions. And when you give suggestions, you offer guidance, but without insisting that those designers change their path to your direction.
Correct.
So how would you encourage educators to respect students' thoughts and their ideas while still providing guidance that continues the conversation?
Well, I believe in pummeling students and designers with questions. I can't even offer any sort of critical analysis unless I have many questions answered for me. And I have to say, as an educator and as a mentor in the design studio, the greatest gift is when the person with whom I'm interacting reveals to me what's happening, what's working, what isn't working, and then I feel it's like a mind meld. But in terms of not wanting an individual to conform to my beliefs, we can't do that. I mean, we need to leave our own, while we hold our beliefs within us and certainly subscribe to them, we need to leave our aesthetic and many of those beliefs at the doorstep, because they're just not appropriate. They don't work for this individual. So finding out what beliefs the individual holds. I mean, sometimes you might want to say to the individual, are you certain that you really want to subscribe to that? Yeah, it's like saying, well, I'm going to be a designer, but I'm going to be the worst designer in the world. Well, good luck. I don't know that that's a belief that I want to hold on to, but it's really about listening. It's about truth telling. It's about empathy. And it's also about letting go, stepping away, all of those things. And as I said earlier, I can't want that individual to succeed more than they do. And when you're at that juncture, you really have to step away. Does that help at all?
Oh, yes, absolutely. It does. And the whole idea of the compassionate educator, that's what I strive for in my classes. I teach in the realm of speech language pathology. So I work a lot with neurology and cognitive development and very black and white types of areas. And sometimes it's hard to encourage the students to think outside the box when we're dealing with those more concrete types of subjects.
I can understand that, yes. You know, speaking of the compassionate educator, when I was chair of the fashion program at Parsons, I needed to do a lot of work with the faculty on pedagogy, on how do you deliver this information. And one thing that I was very emphatic about was, as educators, we never have to raise our voice. We never have to shout. We never have to demonstrate a temper. We don't raise your voice. Just be calm and measured in your delivery. And if we ever have a doubt about that, who's giving the grade? We are. So we hold all the power. We don't have to demonstrate it through loud voices and threats. Sorry, that's a bit of a non sequitur, but the compassionate educator that Mary mentioned led me to that.
I have a question from an anonymous attendee.
Oh.
So I'll read it. Tim, who or what would you cite as some of your greatest creative inspirations?
Oh, good heavens. Daily life. I never cease to be inspired by everything around me. And if you feel there's a lull, go to a museum. I mean, you have fabulous museums in Boston, that's for certain. Inspiration for me is everywhere. And you never know what the truly creative nugget is going to be that's going to catapult you to a place that you never dreamed of, because you can't dream of it. So just to be open, to be a sponge, to be a discerning sponge. You can't absorb everything. For me, it's never an issue. I was visiting the fashion students that I had in Parsons, New York, at our Paris campus. And they said to me, we're so bored. Bored? You're in Paris, for goodness sake. Get out of the studio, take a walk, go to the museums there. Look at the people on the street, ride the metro. I mean, there's so many sources of inspiration, and they're just a glance away.
Yeah. Next question is from Janet. I'm sorry if I'm not saying this correctly. Poli? Is that right? Hi, Janet.
Hi, Janet.
Hi, that was perfect. Yes.
Oh, great.
Tim, you'd mentioned how you were exposed early in your career to vulnerable leadership. And so I wanted to learn a little bit more if you felt that that trend was increasing or whether that was decreasing. So is it getting better or is it lessening?
Oh, Janet, I wish I knew. I honestly don't know. I mean, I can only reflect upon my own experiences. There are a lot of horrible leaders out there. There are a lot of just mean-spirited people who love their power so much that they abuse it. I'll share with you that Project Runway was owned by the Weinstein Company. So right there is a great example of who you shouldn't be. So I've witnessed a lot of bad behavior and I always learn from it. Don't let this happen to you. And when you see a vulnerable leader and you see the kind of response that a leader who's willing to let his or her guard down generates, it's very, very inspiring. And at least for me, and it's the empathetic side of me, I want to be that person. That's the kind of leader I want to be.
Thank
So
you.
I hope it's a burgeoning trend. We'll find out. Certainly in the White House, it's better.
And I'm struck, Tim, like what you said, you know, even with the difficulty in getting on this call, you said things happen for a reason. And we don't always know it when it's happening, but it happens for a reason. And we know that the pendulum swings, right? I mean,
Yes.
And so maybe I would like to think that we lived through the last 4 years so we can get to a better place.
I agree. And we'll know that it's better. I think we were taking things for granted.
And we woke up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's back to assumptions.
Yeah.
Just assume things will be all right.
Someone else will take care of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next question is from our very own Saray, faculty in marketing communication. Saray.
Hello, Saray.
There she is.
Hello, Tim.
Hello.
Thank you for your talk. I really appreciate having you here with our students. You spoke a lot about empathy and being empathetic leader. And I was wondering, as listening to you, is there a team's way of practicing empathy or how to get to where you are right now to being an empathetic leader? So I hope to hear a little bit more on that topic from you.
Well, for me, I test my empathy on myself. How would I respond to these words being spoken to me, to these words with this intonation, to this letter, to this email, to this communication? How would I respond to it? And if I'm squirmy and uneasy and feel uncomfortable about it, then it needs to be amended. It needs to be revived. So I try everything out on myself, and it's a process that I had to develop. It didn't just I didn't just say, oh, I'll try this on myself and everything will be fine. You have to really probe internally and develop the resources to have that level of empathy with everyone you interact with. And well, you have to choose with whom you interact and explore empathy with. But I would use myself as the laboratory.
Thank you. I think that is fantastic, right? Using that reflective approach and sort of treat yourself what you want others to be treated. Thank you very much for that insight.
Thank you for your question.
And building off of that question, we have another anonymous attendee who asks about confidence. So another, it says, Tim, what would you say has given you confidence in yourself as an individual and your own capabilities within your field? And how can one go about building upon this confidence in oneself?
That is a provocative question. I have to say, I'm by nature not a confident person at all. By nature, I want to basically dig a hole and bury myself in it. And it was teaching that taught me that I need to act. I need to act in charge. I need to act as though I'm totally in control. I need to act with tremendous self-confidence. And from a lot of life experience, I've learned that, well, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier about being yourself, being who you are. If you are always true to that person you are, you don't have to worry about really any interaction. I mean, I'm a wreck when I go on talk shows, for instance, but then I just relax into it in a manner of speaking and say, just be yourself. Don't have any guards up. And all will, in a way, all will be well. And it generally it is. So confidence is not something that I come by naturally. And as I said, I'm basically very insecure and filled with self-doubts, but I try not to show it. Yeah, I mean, being on the fencing strip is terrifying for me. And you may know the story, if you know my fencing history. I've won one bout in these 5 years, and it was against an 8-year-old girl.
I was going to ask you that, if there's been any update to that, since that story came out, if there's been any other wins.
Well, she's now a junior champion. So,
oh my goodness.
She wants to bout again. And I said, Aria, whatever you want, we'll do it.
Aria, I love that.
Yeah.
I would never fence with someone named Aria. I know how that would turn out. Okay, next question is from Mila. I will not get this right. Ak? Mila?
Mila, hi.
Hi, sorry. It's my last name's Aquanita.
Oh,
How
okay.
pretty.
Yeah.
So I had 2 questions. I'll ask the one that I think is a bit more interesting. I'm just wondering how you keep from burning out of a creative passion and balancing that with trying to make a living off of it. Like, how do you keep interested in fashion while also, trying to, not go poor and die, I guess.
Oh, you just have to have a tremendous amount, I shouldn't say just have to, it requires a tremendous amount of tenacity, and also passion. If you don't love it, you're not going to be able to sustain it. And there are times in our career paths when we have to ask ourselves, do we want more of this? Do we want less of it? Do we want to see change? It's not necessarily the case that we should just keep moving forward with the career that we're currently in. It goes back to life's serendipitous path. But I will say, I'm deeply respectful of money and compensation and budgets. You still have to put food on the table. And there are times, and I've had these times, when you move forward with something you're not happy with because you need a paycheck. You need to be able to pay your rent. But then you keep your radar up for an opportunity. Something that may present itself or something that you may identify, and you'll see where it takes you. I mean, I spent most of my life living paycheck to paycheck thinking, if I get fired, I can't make my rent next month. I'm gonna be living in a cardboard box. And that was really most of my life until I was 54. So it took a lot of tenacity on my part to be able to get to that juncture.
Yeah, as we like to say, girls gotta eat.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm aware that it's 1:30.
Is it?
Yeah, well, we had a long delay in getting started. So can we have a little bit more of your time? Are you?
Oh, of course.
Wonderful. Because we've got 54 questions waiting in the queue.
Let's take
We'll get to them all. All right. So how about Bryn Rhodes?
Hi, Bryn.
Hi.
Hi.
Very nice to meet you virtually.
And you, thank you.
So I'm a marketing student here, and I just had a question about, so we're talking about predictive models right now and how they're a great tool for targeting and customer segmentation. So how do you use those kinds of tools in the industry to forecast fashion trends and things like that?
Bryn, I haven't a clue. I honestly don't know. I will say this though, when people ask me what the next fashion trend is going to be, my response is always the same. If I knew, we'd already be there. I honestly don't know. It's a fascinating area to me because I know so little about it, and I'd love to know more. So I hope you'll educate me.
Yeah, I mean, one day, hopefully I will.
Well, you're doing it now just by asking the question.
Yay.
Tim, have you ever
you.
been tempted to start your own line of clothing?
Never. Never. I figured that I'm like Switzerland in the fashion world. I'm nice and neutral. No one can point to me and say, well, look what he did. Michael Kors, when he was a judge on Project Runway, used to say that he would have people coming up to him on the street saying, you see this handbag? I had to have the handle fixed twice.
Yeah.
No, I'm in a nice neutral place. No temptation to ever have a brand.
Yeah. I mean, you did work for Liz Claiborne, so you know what that is.
Yes. It's thankless.
Yeah. Grace Tepper.
Hi, Grace.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm thrilled to be with your community.
I'm so glad you're here. I've been such a huge fan of you and Project Runway my entire life. So this is like the best moment of my day.
Thank you.
I guess I just kind of wanted to ask you what you think about fashion in the past year influenced by COVID, and like if there's anything that you really love about fashion and if there's anything that you really hate that's come up because of COVID.
Oh, I have lots of thoughts. For one, it's recalibrated my own thinking about myself because I've always dressed like this. This is the first time, well, it's actually the second time when Sharon and Michelle and I spoke last, I put on a shirt and tie, but I've been wearing turtleneck sweaters and t-shirts. Yeah, this forced being at home got me out of my suits and into more comfortable clothing. And I'll even be more honest, when I'm here alone and not Zooming, will I walk around in my underwear in a bathrobe? Yes, absolutely. Who's looking? I will say this though, about some of the things that have evolved. We all know that athleisure is here to stay, and athleisure has proliferated during this pandemic. What I object to is expensive athleisure. A certain fashion editor, whom I will not name, did an article in her magazine about how to dress at home during this pandemic. And it was an $1,800 pair of cashmere sweatpants and a $1,400 top that was no different from a sweatshirt. How preposterous is that? Get a $30 pair of sweatpants and a Hanes t-shirt and use send the balance to the homeless or a food bank or a charity. It's obscene, and I think it's vulgar. I just don't believe in spending I don't believe in spending a lot of money on clothes, period. But on athleisure, it's crazy.
And I was very surprised when we talked about masks. There's a whole fashion industry around masks, and I was surprised at what you had to say about that. Well,
I believe that they have a medical purpose. That's why we're wearing them, and they should look medical. I don't believe in disguising them or masquerading, forgive the pun, as
Pun
though
intended.
they're something else. They're not. They're medical. If someone said to me, why don't you have the Project Runway designers, this is a while ago, create fashionable hospital gowns. It's a hospital gown. I want to know who the patient is. I don't want to be confused and think, oh, we have some fashionistas now taking over this bed. No, you need to know that the person's a patient. And that's how I feel about the mass.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I get the athleisure thing as a student athlete at Emerson and an athlete like yourself. So it's definitely a big thing with the cost of athleisure. So thank you so much.
Thank you very, very much.
Tim, you're an athlete. So this is another anonymous attendee. How did you survive through 2 seasons without compensation? I'm an international student who has no home to stay here. I'm worried a lot about how I'm going to go through my summer internship in a big city without being paid.
Oh, I know. I have to say, I don't believe in unpaid internships. At the same time,
Yep.
they're everywhere. But I think it's sinful. And I will say, when I was at Liz Claiborne, we were one of the few fashion companies in New York that paid interns. I mean, we paid everyone. You had to be compensated. Well, during the first 2 seasons of Project Runway, I was still chair of the fashion program at Parsons. So I had a day job, so to speak. And the taping of Project Runway takes 30 days, plus the home visits. So that's another week. But it's swift, it's quick. And it's shot when Parsons isn't in session. So it's not a conflict for me. In fact, when we were taping at Parsons, Heidi used my office as her dressing room. So after the first season, I was sort of horrified when we wrapped the season, because I thought Heidi's been living with all this dust. Then I realized it was her makeup.
Yeah, I was very struck by in one of the in the episodes where they were showing, I think that was very clever. They showed Heidi's process in packing up after, right after leaving. Was it Tokyo maybe? And your process is very different. So how about we go with Molly Sullivan next?
Hi, Molly.
Hi there, this is Molly. Thank you for coming, Tim. This is so exciting. I've been a fan forever.
Oh, thank you, Molly. And thank you for asking a question. I'd love to hear it.
Absolutely. Tim, I just wanted to know, what is one line of advice that you've received either before or during your career that has stuck with you to now? And if who you can tell us from, whoever it came from, if you want to share.
Well, yes. It had to do with my first book, A Guide to Quality, Taste, and Style, and that's a whole other story, and not the book, but the title. I was approached by Abrams Publishers about writing a book, and I was thrilled because I had wanted to write a fashion history book forever. Because, well, I won't go into that. We'll be here forever. But at any rate, they said, no, we want a book in our self-help category. I thought, self-help? What is that? So I went to the bookstore, looked at in the self-help section and thought, this is dreadful. I don't want to have anything to do with this. And coincidentally, I was having lunch with Diane von Furstenberg in her atelier that day. So Diane said to me, you look so mopey. What's the matter? And I told her the story about the self-help and how I really wanted to write a fashion history book. She said, are you crazy? You're being given this opportunity to write a book, write it. And I said, but I don't know how to navigate this whole self-help world. And she said to me, never lose your voice as an educator. And that guided me through the entire process. And it's something that resonates in me today. And that was quite a while ago. So never lose your voice as an educator. So it goes back to what we were saying earlier about know who you are and be true to that person.
Thank you so much, Tim.
Can I tell you quickly of the story about the title Guide to Quality, Taste, and Style? There was a new dean at Parsons. This is in the 1990s. And he'd been in the role for about a year. And we were going through an accreditation re-review, and I was on the steering committee. And the dean said to me, there are 3 words that I insist you remove from your vocabulary. I said, really? What are they? He said, quality, taste, and style. He said, they're undemocratic. I said, this is design. What is it if it's not quality, taste, and style? So I stopped using the words around him, but I thought, I'll show him. I'm going to use this as the title of my book. And I did.
How long did that dean last?
5 years.
Yeah. Interesting. I'd like to go to another faculty member, Bhamati.
Hello.
I live in Boston because I'm not a big fashion person. I grew up in New York and I love dressing nicely, but I don't really love fashion, but I love the theory of fashion, and I love to think and write about it. And as an educator as well, I think it has some very interesting things to teach us. So I am curious about copying and appropriation in fashion. I see it a lot, and I talk about it a lot because I study intellectual property and write about that in the digital world. And I know that people like your colleague and friend Diane von Furstenberg have talked about copyright in fashion, and whether laws could stop people from copying. But in a world where copying is really rampant, and where now you can, instant fast fashion can pretty much reproduce anything instantaneously and trickled it down even to the masses like me, who might be able to shop at Zara but might not be able to shop at, say, Louis Vuitton. What do you do to keep young up and coming designers from having their works appropriated, ripped off, copied, stolen out from under them? And it sort of ties in with fast fashion, right? It encourages people to buy very quickly turning over goods. How do we move people away from that and toward an idea of sustainability and things that might take us to a better future in terms of the climate?
Well, your question is hugely profound. And it's something I've been dealing with since I've been part of the industry, which has really only been since 2000. Well, that's not only, it's 21 years almost. We're the only industrialized nation, the US is, that doesn't give fashion designers or designers in period their intellectual property. Anything can be ripped off. And I have my own theory about why. It's because until World War II, when the couture houses in Paris all closed, until that moment, we were a nation of copiers. It's all that we did. We went to the couture shows in Paris, we sketched, we took photographs, and we came back and we copied it. The only place in this nation where creative work was actually happening before that time was Hollywood. It was happening with costume designers. And there are a few cases, Gilbert Adrian is one, where there was such a fervor for these designs that he put on the silver screen that a ready-to-wear line developed, but with his name on it, of course. I have spent a good deal of time on Capitol Hill. This was really during the Obama years, advocating for a bill called the Design Piracy Prohibition Act that this Council of Fashion Designers was trying to put through Congress. And people wouldn't listen to us. People were saying, I don't want my wife spending more money on clothes. This is a sword, not a shield. And no, it's a shield, not a sword. But it's a pervasive issue. I would have students in my fashion classes who, I mean, they would only do this once because they realized it's not going to happen again, who wouldn't show me their work unless we were alone in a room. I don't want anyone else to see my work. Why? Well, I don't want it copied. Well, anyone can copy your work. It's simply a matter of fact. So how do you deal with that? And it's very, very tough. You're right. So if I can help you in any way with this issue, I'm here for you.
That's wonderful. Thank you. And I'll call you on that because I've been a big fan of that bill and I'd like to see it revived.
Yes.
And I'm a really strong believer that fashion is like the only one of the creative industries that has been greatly hampered by young creators not being able to get rights in their work. So
absolutely true.
So I will connect you two when this is done. We're going to figure out how we can keep Tim as long as we can in the Emerson community.
I'm a fan of the Emerson community.
Wonderful. I think we have time for a couple more questions and then we'll wrap this up. So it's so many. So let me go for one anonymous light question while I look for the heavy ones. What are 3 articles of clothing you cannot live without?
That I personally can't live without?
Yes.
A pair of dark wash jeans, a blazer, and a turtleneck.
I remember reading somewhere you went to try on a pair of, was it leather or?
Wax cotton jeans.
Do you think you need to dress your age? You know, you said that this is just not going to work for you.
Well, I was coveting this pair of waxed cotton jeans because they did look like leather, but they weren't $1,000. They were $80. But I held them up in front of me and looked at the sales clerk and asked, am I too old to wear these? And he didn't even hesitate. He just said yes. But quite frankly, this is another little bit of advice. When you ask yourself that question, you've already answered it. Am I too old to wear this? Is this right for me? Chances are it's not, which is why you're asking the question. Otherwise, you just purchase it or put it on. Yeah.
Wonderful. And one more from Na, another faculty member. That's a very relevant question.
Wonderful. Na, we'd love to hear it.
Hi, Tim.
Hi.
Thank you so much. I echo everybody's gratitude for your time. I just was wondering what you thought about issues of inclusion and diversity, because we've seen maybe more recently some fashion houses missing the mark in terms of the designs they create, or even like diversity within the.
Oh, yes, absolutely right. And that's going to continue to happen, but there are many, many more designers and design houses, brands that are embracing inclusivity, and it's necessary. It's simply a matter of fact of the world today. And as you probably know, I'm a huge advocate for inclusivity of all kinds. And there are, I battled with this at Liz Claiborne because there were 48 brands, and I certainly won't list all of them, but most of the, I was advocating for inclusivity in these brands because most of them were not. And I had the design directors telling me, we don't care about that person. We simply don't care. And I would say, well, then shame on you. And whatever goes with that shame. But it's necessary, and the world is changing. The world is getting much more realistic, much more grounded, and much more willing to embrace everyone. And that's a good thing. But there's still a lot of work to do. So your voice is important.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we have one special request, and then I'm going to bring Brent back for some final comments. Natalie asked if you would give a shout out to her 4-year-old daughter, Miriam.
Certainly.
She's a huge fan of bailiwick.
Miriam, if you're out there, this is bailiwick saying that we'd love to invite you to the castle to interact with Princess Sophia and her family. And I hope I get to meet you someday.
Thank you so much for doing this. This was great.
Hi, Miriam. How are you? You're even prettier than Princess Sophia.
Oh,
thank you.
Thank you. It's so funny, but that's exactly how I met Tim for the first time. I was in the Museum of Natural History with my then 4-year-old daughter.
No way.
Yeah, and we were just looking at the geodes or something, and I see Tim, and I introduced myself as Alana's sister, and he said, yeah, you look exactly like her. And I said, Liv, that's bailiwick.
She was saying, she's like, he looks and sounds just like him.
Yeah, awesome. Another kind character. Oh, Tim, can you just tell the story about how bailiwick came about before we end?
Sure. Disney sent me a script for a 45-minute movie that featured this character, and it was really the setting the stage for the animated series Sophia the First. And the Disney producer said, we designed this character in your image with your voice and your characteristics. Is there any way you would lend your voice to this? Well, who would have the audacity to say no? I mean, of course. And I've just so enjoyed being bailiwick and being part of this feel-good television with a lovely morality tale in every episode. It's a very special series, and I'm honored to be part of it.
Yeah, all about inclusion, you know, like, you know, it really, really embodies what we're talking about. Tim, thank you so much for this conversation. It's been wonderful.
Well, Sharon, thank you, and heartfelt thanks to the whole Emerson community.
Thank you, Tim.
It's been a wonderful experience. Thank you, Michelle, too. Thank you very, very much.
Brent, did you want to come back on for a few words?
Sure, thank you so much. So first, thank you, Tim. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Michelle. This has been really special. I think we will leave Tuesday and walk into Wednesday with a big smile on our face. So thank you for sharing your time with us. And I think also, thank you for sharing your mind with us. We just really appreciate that you made yourself available to answer so many questions from students. And you know, we have a special appreciation for you as a member of our community. So we're not letting you go, and don't you let us go. So we are forever tied together, right?
You're stuck with me, Brent.
Yeah, there we go. All right. You know, so for everyone, as we look forward to the next 3 parts of the speaker series, we have on February 17, Women in Business Leadership. February 23, Reset Buttons, how today's consumers are showing us what really matters. And on March 3, a conversation with Jay Francis, Vice President, Current Series and Diversity at the Walt Disney Company. So again, as our theme is rethinking consumer engagement, leading with empathy, equity, and integrity, we really wanted to emphasize the importance of everyone and the connectivity between everyone. Business, society, companies, consumers, leaders, team members, followers. As Tim said to us, we've all got a voice. We need to stand up and say something. So may we be our authentic selves, and may we be ready to receive people as they offer up their authentic selves to us. So as we heard last year in 2020, we're all in this together. And so may we proceed in 2021 and forward, you know, believing that. So our story is what we make it. Thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you in the near future for our next session. Take care.